In the mountain foothills of North Carolina, here in the United States, there are green crystals hidden in the ground that are worth more than a house. I am not exaggerating even a little. A record-setting emerald pulled out of that very region once sold for around $1.5 million, and it was dug up by an independent prospector working the ground by hand, no giant mining company with heavy machines involved. These green crystals are emeralds, and most people have no idea that the American mountains hold them at all. Emeralds are among the rarest gemstones on the entire planet, by some counts around 20 times rarer than diamonds. Most people quietly assume they only come from faraway places like Colombia or Brazil. What almost nobody realizes is that the mountains right here in the United States hide them too, and a regular person, standing in the right spot with the right knowledge in their head, can actually find one. But here is what makes today's video even more valuable to you than a story about one lucky find. By the time we are done, you will not only understand how these little green fortunes form and where in the American mountains they hide, you will also walk away with something much bigger. Because the emerald is only one member of an entire hidden family of gemstones, and every single one of its cousins is found using the very same knowledge, in the very same kinds of places. Learn to find one of them, and you have quietly learned to find them all. So stick with me, because we are going to start with the emerald, the green crown jewel of the American mountains. And from there, I'm going to show you how the same handful of simple skills opens the door to a whole family of valuable stones that most people walk right past every day. And the best part is that several of those cousins are far easier to find than the emerald itself. Let us begin with what an emerald truly is, because that single answer is the key that unlocks everything else. For an emerald in particular, nature has to pull off something unusually difficult, and that difficulty is the whole reason emeralds sit so high on the rarity list. The beryllium that builds beryl tends to form in one kind of geologic setting, while the chromium that colors it green usually lives in a completely different kind of rock. For an emerald to even exist, the Earth has to drag those two unlikely partners into the same place at the same time, normally deep inside a mountain belt where hot mineral-rich fluids are being forced through cracks and one mass of rock is squeezing against another over millions of years. When those two separate worlds finally collide in just the right way, you get emerald. When they do not, you get nothing at all. That is why emeralds are counted among the rarest stones on Earth, by some estimates, roughly 20 times rarer than diamond. And believe it or not, the United States happens to have exactly the right kind of ancient, weathered, beaten-up mountains for this rare recipe. The undisputed star of the show is North Carolina. In the foothills of the Blue Ridge, in a small pocket of the state around a little town that is actually named Hiddenite, the ground holds genuine, world-class emeralds. This is not a rumor or a tall tale told to sell tickets. The largest cut emerald ever found in all of North America, a magnificent green stone nicknamed the Carolina Emperor, came out of that very North Carolina ground. For generations, farmers in those foothills turned up little green crystals while plowing their fields, and many of them had no idea they were holding gems far rarer than diamonds. What makes North Carolina especially thrilling for someone like you is that it is home to the only emerald mine in the entire United States that opens its gates to the public, where you can come in, dig, and keep what you find. At that spot, regular visitors pay for a bucket of gem-rich dirt and wash it through a screen, or work the creek and the soil by hand across the property, and people genuinely do walk out with real emeralds in their pockets. It stands as living proof that this is not some impossible fantasy reserved for big corporations. It is something an ordinary, curious person can plan a weekend around and actually go do. Before we go any deeper into how to recognize one of these stones with your own eyes, let me pause for just a moment because it ties directly into everything we are covering today. If this world of finding and identifying gemstones is something you genuinely want to get good at, I run a members area here on the channel built for exactly that. Every single month, I take one specific gemstone and go deep on it, walking you through step-by-step how to recognize it, how to test it at home, and how to tell the real thing apart from the fakes and the cheap lookalikes that fool so many beginners. It is the kind of focused, one-stone-at-a-time training that slowly turns a curious newcomer into someone with a real, trustworthy eye for gems. If that sounds like you, the join button is right there below the video. Now, let us head back to the mountains. Here is the idea that turns this single video into a skill you can lean on for the rest of your life. Because an emerald is simply one colored version of beryl, every place and every clue that leads you to an emerald is also leading you straight to its entire family. The same mountain rocks, the same crystal shapes, the same simple tests all carry over. So when I teach you to spot an emerald, I'm really teaching you to spot a whole group of valuable stones at the same time. Let me show you the quiet signs that give all of them away. The single most powerful clue for spotting any member of the beryl family, emerald very much included, is the shape of the crystal itself. Beryl grows in a wonderfully distinctive form that, once you learn it, your eye will never be able to unsee. It forms long six-sided columns, almost like a pencil with six flat faces running down its length, very often capped with a flat top. Picture a stubby or a stretched-out six-sided pillar, and you have got the basic shape of nearly every raw beryl crystal on Earth. Many of them also carry fine, straight lines running lengthwise along those six faces, a little like the grain in a piece of wood. So, when you're out in the field and you notice a six-sided crystal poking out of a rock or lying loose in the gravel, your attention should snap to it, because that hexagonal shape is beryl waving a flag right at you. It helps to know that this six-sided shape shows up in a few different conditions, and learning all of them widens your net. Sometimes you find a complete, clean crystal standing proud, with sharp faces and a flat top, and that is the dream. More often, though, you find a crystal still locked partway into its host rock, with only one end sticking out. So you train your eye to catch even a single six-sided face peeking from a broken surface. And sometimes you find a piece that has been knocked around and worn by water until its edges are rounded. Yet even then, if you look at the end of it, you can often still make out the ghost of that six-sided outline. A handy trick is to look at the cross-section, the flat end of the crystal, because a true beryl will tend to show that six-cornered shape there, like the end of a freshly cut pencil. Once your eye locks onto hexagons, the right stones start jumping out of the gravel at you. The second clue is color, and this is where the whole family opens up in front of you. Remember that beryl is colorless until trace elements painted, so the color is basically announcing which cousin you happen to be holding. A rich leafy green means chromium got into the mix, and that is your emerald. The third clue is hardness, and is a simple, satisfying test you can run with cheap everyday materials. Beryl is hard, sitting at about 7.5 to 8 on the standard scale geologists use to rank hardness, the one where diamond is the maximum at 10. In plain language, that means a real beryl will scratch glass and even a steel knife blade without much effort, while those same everyday materials cannot scratch the beryl back. So, if you carefully drag the edge of a suspected emerald across a piece of glass you do not care about, and it bites in and leaves a clean scratch, you've got a strong sign that you're holding the genuine mineral. One honest word of caution here. Emeralds especially can be a bit brittle, precisely because they are so often packed with internal flaws, so you go gently and you never go dragging a cut, polished, or valuable stone across anything. Save the rough hardness check for raw material you wouldn't lose sleep over. The fourth clue is what is happening inside the stone, and for emeralds, this is one of the most useful tells of them all. Most natural emeralds are full of tiny internal features, little cracks, wisps, veils, and trapped crystals that gem people affectionately call the garden. Because under magnification, the inside can look like a tiny green landscape frozen in place. That built-in garden, which might look like damage at first glance, is one of the very best signs that an emerald is real and grew naturally in the ground. So here is a rule that genuinely surprises beginners. With emeralds, a stone that looks completely flawless and perfectly clean should make you suspicious rather than excited, because a too perfect green stone is very often glass or a lab-grown copy. A cheap little jeweler's magnifier, called a loupe, lets you peek inside and hunt for that natural garden, and it is some of the best few dollars a gem hunter will ever spend. Round, trapped bubbles inside usually point to glass, while smooth, curved lines can mean the stone was grown in a factory. Now I have to be straight with you about one test that does not behave the same way here, because the lesson inside it is important. If you have seen videos about heavier gems like sapphire, you know that the weight in your hand can be a great clue, since those stones feel surprisingly heavy for their size. Beryl is a different animal. It weighs just about the same as ordinary quartz, the common clear crystal you can find almost anywhere, so an emerald simply will not feel especially heavy in your palm. That is not bad news at all. It just means that for the entire beryl family, you lean on the shape, the color, and the hardness instead of leaning on the heft. Knowing which test to trust for which stone is one of the things that quietly separates a person who truly understands gems from a person who is only guessing and hoping.
There is one more thing your eye should drink in, and that is the luster, which is just a fancy word for the kind of shine a stone has on its surface. Every member of the beryl family has what gem people call a vitreous luster, meaning it shines like clean glass, bright and a little wet-looking, with a hard, glossy surface rather than a dull, chalky, or plasticky one. A quick way to wake that shine up in the field is to wet the stone, since a splash of water cuts through the dust and lets the true color and that glassy gleam pop out. So a clear, glassy shine on a hard, six-sided crystal is a beautiful stack of clues, all pointing the same direction. Let me tie these tests into a simple routine you can actually run beside a creek, because stacking them is where the real confidence comes from. First, your eye catches a six-sided shape, so you pick it up. Second, you wet it and read the color and the glassy shine, which tells you which cousin you might have. Third, you give it a gentle hardness check against a piece of glass to confirm you are holding something genuinely hard and not a soft imposter. And fourth, you raise it to your loupe and look inside for that natural garden of tiny features, ruling out the round bubbles of glass and the smooth curved lines of a factory-grown stone. No single test is the whole answer, but when the shape, the color, the hardness, and the inside all agree with each other, you can be very confident about what is sitting in your palm.
And the last clue is the company that beryl keeps, meaning the kind of rock it grows inside, which becomes your treasure map for where to even begin looking. We will dig into that ground in just a moment, but hold on to this as the thread that ties everything together. Beryl, in nearly every color it comes in, tends to grow in the same family of rocks, so the instant you learn to read that rock, you are reading the home of emeralds, aquamarines, and all of their cousins at once. So, let us actually meet the family, the cousins of emerald, that you can track down with these exact same skills, focusing on the ones you are most likely to run into here in the United States. The first and most famous cousin is aquamarine. If an emerald is green beryl colored by chromium, then aquamarine is blue beryl colored by a trace of iron, and its name comes straight from the old words for seawater, a nod to that clean blue to blue-green color, like a piece of tropical ocean trapped inside a crystal. Aquamarine tends to grow far cleaner and clearer than emerald, often forming gorgeous, transparent, six-sided crystals, and it is much more forgiving to find in beautiful condition. The headline American location for it is honestly incredible. Near the very summit of Mount Antero in Colorado, at over 14,000 feet of elevation, aquamarine crystals grow tucked into pockets in the rock, making it one of the highest gemstone deposits in all of North America. People literally climb a mountain into thin, freezing air to hunt for these blue gems. Aquamarine has also turned up in the old pegmatite veins of New England, in states like Connecticut and Maine. So, the same six-sided shape you just learned to spot, this time wearing sky blue, is one of the most reachable, real treasures in the American mountains. The second cousin is morganite, and this one is a soft, romantic pink to peachy gem that has exploded in popularity in jewelry over the last decade or so. Its gentle, rosy color comes from a trace of manganese, and the same beryl mineral that gives us green emerald and blue aquamarine simply takes on this warm blush instead. Morganite has a famous American home in California, specifically the gem-rich pegmatites around Pala in San Diego County, which is also where the stone was first celebrated and given its name more than 100 years ago in honor of the wealthy banker John Pierpont Morgan. It shows up in the pegmatites of Maine as well, so when you are sorting through material and you catch that six-sided beryl shape carrying a peachy pink glow, you may be holding a morganite, a stone that barely registered with the public a generation ago and now sells briskly in jewelry counters everywhere. The third cousin goes by two names, golden beryl, and heliodor. And as those names hint, this is the sunny one. Colored a warm yellow to golden honey shade by iron, golden beryl can form into beautifully clear, glassy crystals that almost look like drops of frozen sunlight, and the name heliodor itself was given in honor of the sun. It is one of the more affordable members of the family, which makes it a wonderful stone for a beginner to find and proudly keep. And it appears in granite pegmatites in a number of spots, including pockets scattered across the American pegmatite regions. When that six-sided beryl shape shows up dressed in a clear golden yellow, that is your golden beryl, and finding it is proof that you are standing on ground capable of producing the whole family. The fourth cousin is the quiet one that almost everybody overlooks, and that is goshenite, the colorless, clear form of beryl. Since pure beryl with no trace elements is naturally colorless, goshenite is, in a sense, the family showing up in its plainest and most honest form. It is found widely across the United States, in California, Maine, the Dakotas, Colorado, North Carolina, and more, very often sitting right alongside its colorful relatives. Here is why this plain-looking stone should matter to you even though it has no flashy color of its own. Finding clear six-sided goshenite crystals in an area is a loud signal that the ground is busy producing beryl, which means the conditions might also be right for its far more valuable colored cousins nearby. So the clear stone that most people kick aside is in truth a guide, pointing you toward where the green, blue, and pink prizes could be hiding. It also helps to know the imposters each cousin tends to get confused with, because the same tests sort them out fast. Blue aquamarine gets mixed up with blue glass and with softer blue stones, but the six-sided crystal shape, the glassy hardness that scratches glass, and the natural insides under a loupe quickly settle it. Pink morganite can be mistaken for pink quartz or pink glass. Yet again, the hexagonal shape and the beryl hardness tell the real story, since common quartz will not show that clean six-sided beryl habit in the same way. Golden beryl can be confused with yellow quartz, often sold as citrine, so you lean on crystal shape and on looking inside. The lovely thing is that you do not need a new skill for each one. The exact same 4 checks you already learned, shape, color, hardness, and a peek inside, carry you through the whole family and past nearly every cheap pretender. It is worth understanding, just briefly, why this family is worth your time in plain dollars and cents, because the spread is enormous and it shapes what you should hope for. A fine emerald can sit among the most expensive gems on Earth, in the same league as top diamonds, which is why even a small, clean one is a genuine prize. Aquamarine is far more common and more affordable, yet a richly colored, clean stone still carries real value at a steady market, and big, clean crystals are prized by collectors. Morganite rode a wave of popularity into engagement rings and now moves briskly at jewelry counters. Golden beryl is the gentle, affordable entry point, perfect for a first real find you can cut or keep. The honest takeaway is that most stones you find will be modest, and that is completely fine, because a modest find still teaches your eye, still has collector value, and is proof you are working the right ground. Every now and then, though, the same patch of gravel that has been handing you small pieces coughs up the one clean, richly colored crystal that makes all the patience worth it. What I really want you to carry away from meeting this family is the single most important lesson of the entire video. Emerald, aquamarine, morganite, golden beryl, and goshenite are all the very same mineral, just painted by different trace elements. So every minute you spend learning to recognize an emerald is quietly teaching you to recognize 5 different gemstones at once, several of which are much easier to find than the emerald that brought you here in the first place. Now that you can recognize the beryl family by sight, the real question becomes where to point your boots. And this is where understanding the rock pays off more than anything else you can learn. Because here is the truth that rescues you from wandering around aimlessly. Beryl does not grow just anywhere. It grows in very particular places. And once you learn to read those places, the whole landscape starts quietly telling you where to look. The home base for most of the beryl family is a kind of rock called pegmatite. Do not let that word intimidate you, because a pegmatite is easy to recognize once you know the trick. It is basically a granite, the common speckled rock you've seen in kitchen countertops and street curbs, except that a pegmatite formed very slowly from the last leftover mineral-rich juices of a cooling body of molten rock deep underground. That slow, patient cooling gave its crystals room and time to grow unusually large. So, while ordinary granite shows small salt and pepper grains, a pegmatite shows big, chunky, easy-to-see crystals of clear to milky quartz, blocky feldspar, and flat, flaky, shiny mica that peels apart in thin sheets like the pages of a book. When you're walking a mountain area and you come across a pale, coarse vein of rock full of big, glassy, and flaky crystals cutting through the darker rock around it, you have found a pegmatite. And pegmatites are the nurseries where aquamarine, morganite, golden beryl, and goshenite love to grow. Emerald plays by a slightly pickier rulebook, and it is worth knowing why. Because emerald needs that chromium to turn green, and chromium lives in different rocks than beryllium does. Emeralds often show up not in the clean white heart of a pegmatite, but right where a beryllium-rich vein has pushed into and reacted with a darker, chromium-bearing rock. Frequently, that flaky, shiny rock called mica schist. So in emerald country, like North Carolina, the seasoned hunters pay very close attention to those contact zones, the borderlands where two different rock types meet and mingle, because that exact collision is the strange recipe the greenstone demands. Learning to spot where pale vein cuts into a dark, shiny, flaky host rock is, in many ways, learning to spot where emeralds want to be. Once you know to look for pegmatites and those contact zones in the mountains, running water does a great deal of the rest of the work for you, the same way it does for so many other gems. Over thousands of years, the weather slowly breaks these rocks down, and the tough little beryl crystals get washed downhill into the gravels of nearby creeks and streams. So even when you cannot get at a vein directly, the gravel in a creek draining a beryl-rich hillside can carry loose crystals that nature has already freed and gathered up for you. That is the reason so much hands-on gem hunting happens with a simple screen and a bucket beside running water, washing the dirt away and scanning the gravel for that telltale six-sided shape and a flash of color. A great moment to do this is right after a good rain, when the mud has been rinsed off the stones and a clean crystal can catch the light and give itself away. When you do work a creek, the method is refreshingly simple and it costs almost nothing to start. You scoop gravel from the spots where heavy material settles, the inside of bends, the pockets behind boulders, and the cracks down in the bedrock, and you wash it through a screen in the water to rinse the mud away. Then you spread the cleaned gravel out and scan it slowly, letting your eye hunt for that six-sided shape and any flash of green, blue, pink, or gold among the dull stones. Patience is the whole game here, because for every crystal worth keeping, there are hundreds of ordinary pebbles, and the people who find the good ones are simply the ones who kept calmly looking. It also pays to learn the look of mica while you're at it, since that flaky, shiny, peel-apart rock is so often the companion of beryl, and a creek bed sparkling with little flakes of mica is a creek bed worth slowing down for. And the most beginner-friendly way to actually start doing all of this in the United States is to visit one of the public fee dig sites. In North Carolina, the public emerald mine I mentioned earlier lets you buy a bucket of gem-rich dirt and wash it through a screen, or work the creek and the soil yourself, keeping every gem you pull out. A place like that takes all of the guesswork and all of the legal worry off your shoulders, because the ground is set up for exactly this purpose and your finds are yours to keep. As you get more serious, you can branch out toward the known beryl regions, always with a careful eye on the rules, since some of the best ground sits on private land or active mining claims that legally belong to someone else, and some of it, like those high Colorado peaks, demands real respect for the altitude, the weather, and your own safety. The mountains do hand out treasure, but they fully expect you to be smart and humble about how you go after it. One last encouragement before we wrap the hunting side of this: you do not have to live in North Carolina or Colorado to play. The same recipe, beryllium-rich pegmatites and the mountain belts that carry them, repeats in pockets all across the country, in New England, the Rockies, the Southwest, and the old worn ranges of the East. A little time spent searching for your own state along with words like pegmatite, beryl, aquamarine, or emerald will very often turn up old reports, rock clubs, and known spots much closer to home than you would ever expect. The hobby is far more accessible than people assume, and the first step is simply knowing what you are looking at, which is exactly what you now do. Put the whole picture together and the method turns out to be beautifully simple. And that is the whole point I want to leave burning in your mind. The world of gemstones is far bigger and far closer to home than most people ever imagine, and once you start truly learning to identify these stones, you stop walking past small fortunes hidden in plain sight. That is exactly why I built a members area here on the channel for people who are serious about getting good at this. Every single month, I take one specific gemstone and go all the way in on it, showing you how it forms, how to recognize it in the rough, how to test it with simple tools, and how to tell the genuine article from the fakes and the lookalikes that catch beginners off guard. It is like a focused little gemstone class delivered to you one stone at a time, and it is the fastest way I know to build a real, trustworthy eye for this. Over the months, it stacks up into a genuine library of identification know-how, one gem after another, so that whatever you pull out of the dirt, you have already learned how to read it. If you want in, just tap the join button on the screen and come on through. But if now is not the right moment for that, no problem at all. You can keep learning right alongside me for free right here. Just subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and watch the next video already popping up on your screen, where I show you more ways to find precious stones hidden close to where you live. Thanks for liking and subscribing. Good luck, Gem Hunter!